Hello, I'm Bud McCord. Welcome to Food for Thought, Thinking with Jesus. It is November 19, 2020. Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. And I believe we can also think with Christ. Let's talk today about a really important subject, victimhood. Would you counsel someone to live with the identity of being a victim? I'm not talking about denying the fact that things have been done wrong toward a person or toward you or toward me. I'm talking about actually assuming a posture that says, I am a victim, and letting that single thought guide your behavior over a period of time, or maybe even for your entire life. Let me read a story to you that kind of gives you an idea of the effect that being a victim, even for a short period of time, can do in the way that you view people and the way that you treat other people. It's a story about me. I'll confess my own sins today. I noticed some scratches in the paint on my car. I immediately got frustrated and angry. I tried to remember where I'd been with my car recently. I wanted to find the person who was guilty of damaging my car. I shared my frustrations with several people. I was looking for comfort. I spoke at length with my wife, Pam. Everyone did their best to lift my spirits. Even though I was still mad, I was actually enjoying being a victim. All the attention felt good. I kept looking for the guilty person or persons. I became convinced that the children who live in our building were the most likely source of my pain. Every day I wished I could catch them in the act of scratching my car. A few days later, I opened the rear door on the driver's side of my car to put my laptop bag in the back seat. I heard the sound of metal scraping metal. I found the person who was guilty of scratching my car. It was me. Every time I put the laptop bag into the car, I was damaging the paint. These words of Jesus quickly came to my mind. Judge not that you be not judged, for with what judgment you judge, you will be judged, and with the measure you use, it will be measured back to you. Matthew 7, verses 1 and 2. The danger of living as a victim is to find a certain pleasure in the attention we may get from others. We definitely need to look hard and long at our own capacity to do damage to others before we go looking for the guilty who made us a victim. It was not pleasant to find out that I was the guilty person. Even more unpleasant was having to reveal to my wife and friends I was the guilty party and not the victim. You know, I realize that there are many people who suffer incredible injustices in this world, and I've probably not suffered 10% of what some of them have suffered. But I still believe that if we would look at Jesus, who did suffer at a level that none of us can even really comprehend, that he never assumed his identity in this world as being a victim. Jesus was a continuous action of love. And no matter what happened to him, he would not accept the title of victim. An author that has influenced me greatly is Oswald Chambers in his daily devotional, My Utmost for His Highest, which I recommend very highly. He said this, and it took me years to understand what he was trying to say. He said, the greatest sin a Christian can commit is to be filled with self-pity. Let me read that again. The greatest sin a Christian can commit is to be filled with self-pity. He said, when we're filled with self-pity and we assume this posture of victimhood, we completely disregard everything God has been for us and everything God is being in us at the same moment. When we're filled with self-pity, we completely obliterate from our view the goodness of God and the way God is overcoming in us whatever has been done against us. It took me a long time to come to agreement about what he says. So here, let me give you a few conclusions to think about. I find nothing in the life of Jesus that looks like victimhood. I've read the stories of Jesus from Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. I've read the apostles and their comments about Jesus. I cannot find a single trace in any of Jesus' behavior where he accepted the title victim. From his temptation in the wilderness in Matthew chapter 4, where Satan comes to him and wants him to turn the stones into bread, and he wants him to put on a show so that God will have to rescue him. And even when he was offered the kingdoms of the world, because obviously he was such a victim, he needed to be rewarded with the kingdoms of the world. Jesus clearly would not accept the title of victim. When he was before Pilate, shortly before his crucifixion, Pilate wanted to make him a victim. And Jesus said, no one is taking my life. I'm laying my life down. When he was on the cross and he was dying, he looks out on the people that were crucifying him and he says, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. He would not at any moment accept victimhood. I see nothing in the teaching of the apostles that would lead me to believe that victimhood is a strategy for living that solves the problems or makes the world a better place. I see nothing in the life of the apostles and their behavior that would lead me to believe that we as believers in Jesus should view ourselves on a daily basis as victims. Now, let me speak just personally as a father and a grandfather, father of 4 adult children, and also the grandfather of 11 grandchildren. I would never encourage anyone that I deeply love to take on the identity of victimhood. I would want them to be able to be honest about what had happened and how it has hurt them. But I would not want it to define them. And I would not want it to be the story of their behavior from that point forward. I would never encourage anyone that I love to move into this role of victimhood. I was tempted to live in that way as a victim during a lot of years. And I used to read almost every day a list. And this list was about who I am in Christ. I'm a child of God. I'm born again. I'm free. I'm accepted. I'm beloved. I'm reconciled. I'm justified. I'm forgiven. It was a list, and I would read it every day. And the list did not have a single drop of victimhood in it. It was all about who I am in Christ, because Christ died for me and Christ lives in me. I would encourage you to eliminate from your thinking this thing of becoming a victim. Because when I was sure that somebody had damaged the paint in my car, I began to think it was the children in the building where I lived. And so every time I looked at the kids playing around in the building, I looked at them with the eyes of judgment. I was thinking, which one of these kids scratched my car? My behavior toward them was colder. It wasn't warm. It wasn't open. It wasn't friendly. While I was getting everybody to empathize with me, my wife and my friends, I was taking their mind off of what they needed to deal with and putting all of their attention on me and the pain that I was going through. And I know that we're talking about a scratch on a car is nothing compared to what people go through in life. But I still believe, as little as that was for me, it was a moment when I understood that when you take the role of a victim, you also begin to stop loving because you're so afraid of getting hurt. I cannot see that fear being a fear that comes from God. I really believe that we should not become victims as an identity. As a reality, we can see it, we can say what we need to say about it, we can forgive, and we can move on. I, for one, do not want anything to do with victimhood, even though it still is a temptation that comes once in a while into my life. Think on these things, take these thoughts to Jesus.